Hello again, my name is Rodney Reynolds and welcome to another video review. Today I will be looking at the Soyo P4I Fire Dragon motherboard. As you can see here, this package comes with a lot of things inclusive. I'll just go through some of these things. First I'll start with the smart card reader. Of course, this is used really with these kind of cards. You can use these in different PDA devices and cell phones and so on and so forth, storing data. This smart card reader in the front comes with a FireWire port here, as well as two USB ports. As well, the manual. It also is inclusive of some software like antivirus and Ghost and Adobe's Active Share, and of course some software here as well and drivers. It also comes with 3 ATA 133 cables and 1 floppy cable. Also comes with thermal paste, which is handy if your cooler does not come with this. And as well, of course, you have a sound attachment here, which goes connected directly into the motherboard. And I'll go over that in greater detail a little later. And of course, the motherboard itself. This is the Intel Socket 478 Pentium 4 based Intel i845 chipset motherboard. I will be going over a few details about the motherboard here. One of the first things you'll notice is this bracket. Now this bracket of course is common throughout all Pentium 4 motherboards. This one's a little different because it comes with 4 screws here in each corner, and of course these screws can be removed if you want to use a special cooler that goes through and mounts on the underside of the motherboard. However, this does enable and ensure that this bracket is not going anywhere and it's very, very stable. So certainly installing any kind of cooler that attaches to this bracket is going to be very, very secure. Right here, of course, is where you would be installing the Pentium 4 CPU. Right here is 2 banks of DDR memory. You can install up to 1 gigabyte in each bank for a total of 2 gigabytes of memory. Now, you do need a special or at least a quality power supply when connecting it to this motherboard because it does require 3 connections. Now, I can't stress this enough. A lot of the cheaper Pentium 4 power supplies you purchase they say they're Pentium 4 approved, but really a lot of the quality power supplies like Enermax do come with 3 power connections that connect directly into the motherboard, and I'll show you those now. There's one right here, and there's 2 over right here, and you need to connect the power supply directly into here really to get everything to work, because otherwise obviously it would not. So some Pentium 4 motherboards do not come with 3 connectors, but in this situation you would need a power supply that does connect there. Right here is where the RAID and the IDEs are located, and of course you can go up to ATA 133. This is the floppy drive controller right here. You have an internal connection here for a FireWire, like a FireWire hard drive or another internal FireWire device. Now this is where the internal connection for the FireWire, which I showed you earlier, that was on the smart card reader, so it goes plugged into here, and of course you can plug devices in the front of your computer system, which is very handy by connecting it right here. Right here is where you'll be connecting the case up, basically. Things like your speaker, your hard drive lights, your power LED, your power switch, and your reset switch. Also, this motherboard comes with fan attachments. There's one right here, there's 2 over here, and there's also one right here, and as well, one right here. And right here is where you will be plugging in the smart card reader, as well as some extra USB ports. This motherboard comes with 6 Pci slots, as well as an AGP slot right here. Also on the back here, there is sound which comes with this motherboard. Really 6-channel audio, because you have the ability of doing the fronts, the right and the left, as well as the rear, right and the left. And of course you have the sub and you have the center. Now you will need to use this little product here to get some other options available to you, like the center channel, as well as the base, which is at the top right here, as well as the rears on this device. Now also this product comes with an optic out, an optic in, as well as an RCA connection here as well, in and out. And this goes just plugged directly into the motherboard and gets installed like so in your case, so you can plug, of course, the connections into it from the back of your case. Also on the back here, you'll notice there is an LPT port or parallel port, 2 serial ports. You also have a NIC connection right here. This is basically a local area network connection, so you don't need to go out and buy a NIC card. There's already one in here, as well as 2 USB ports and places here to plug your mouse and your keyboard. As I showed you before, of course, there's 3 places here to plug in the Pentium 4 power supply here, and there's 2 over here. I just really want to show you exactly how easy it is to install a Pentium 4 retail cooler. This is the cooler which comes with the retail version of the Pentium 4 CPU. Simply just pop it in like so. Just really line it up on top of the bracket. The bracket I showed you before already came pre-installed on this motherboard. So once that's done, just line it up on top of here. Of course, put down the block first, the aluminum part, which you'll see below here. Once that's done, very simply press down. That's it. It's basically on, and clip it over, and it's installed. Let me now have a look inside this Soyo P4I motherboard's BIOS. The top left-hand corner there's Soyo combo feature. In here there's a lot of things you can enable and disable. For instance, system performance, you can set that to normal or turbo. Also further down here there's called CPU frequency select. You can do an automatic setting, or of course if you want to overclock, you could go ahead and select the manual setting. And if you do select the manual setting, you will have an option below that to set the frequency at 1 megahertz increments. As you can see here, you could go in here and adjust it all the way up to 255. Further down here is a thing called the Soyo Mighty Bolt. This is basically the smart card reader, so you can enable or disable that. And going further down here, where it's really important for overclockers, is a CPU voltage adjustment, which goes all the way up to 1.85 volts. You also have a DDR memory voltage, which goes all the way up to 2.68 volts. And also in here you have an AGP voltage setting as well, which goes all the way up to 1.68. So certainly a lot of voltage settings there. Also, you have an advanced DRAM control in here. You can go, of course, automatic, or you can set it to DDR200 or DDR266. And also in here you have a DRAM timing. You can go in here, of course, and you can do it just by speed, so basically an automatic setting, or you can go manual and you can adjust things like the latency time. You can go 1.5, 2, or 2.5, and adjust other things in here as well, plus also adjusting the AGP aperture size. Further down here in the same area, the Soyo combo feature part of the BIOS, you can go down here and select your first boot, second boot, third boot, and so on. You can do sequences here, RAID, ATA, SCSI, so you can do your sequencing here as well. Also further down, you can enable or disable the onboard LAN or the onboard NIC card. You can enable or disable the audio. You can enable or disable the FireWire, and you can also enable or disable the onboard IDE RAID controller in here, as well as the CIH 4-way protection. You can enable or disable that. Another important part of the BIOS here is called Advanced Chipset Features. Within here you can go in and adjust the system BIOS cacheable, the video BIOS cacheable, or the video RAM cacheable. Of course, you can enable or disable any of those features. Also, there's an integrated peripherals part of this BIOS. This is pretty common though throughout many BIOSes on the market. You can go in here, of course, and enable the on-chip primary PCI IDE, or you can, of course, disable it. And you can go further down here, you can enable or disable a USB controller, as well as US keyboard support. And even if you go further down here, you'll notice that you have some controls as well, of course, over the COM ports or the serial ports here. And even further down, you have a control for the parallel port or the LPT port. And of course, you can also, at the end here, select a function called power on after power failure. So if you have a power failure, the system will automatically restart and power up without having to turn it back on again. So again, a lot of features in here. Lastly, we'll be looking at the PC health status. In here you can monitor voltages on the system as well as the CPU temperature and the system temperature, as well as you can monitor the RPMs of the fans. A neat feature.